Really
Yeah.
disappointing.
Yeah.
If you're rearing a boy,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in this country,
Yeah.
you spend so much time
Yeah.
talking to
Right.
that kid about
Yeah.
keeping your hands to yourself,
Yeah.
controlling
Yeah.
your emotions.
Yeah.
And then there's also this long-held perception in this country that, men of color especially can't control their rage and their anger. And just to see someone who's been that beloved for decades,
Yeah.
it was troubling on so many levels.
Dispel some of the doubts or remove some of the doubts where people are saying Will Smith proves that black people are violent. One of the things that we find in today's time that some of the worst enemies for black peoples are other black peoples. And some blacks and other peoples are saying that Will Smith incident smacking Chris Rock proves that black people are violent people, and that Will Smith, being the person who he is financially and entertainment, his action proves that black people, despite what they're doing, what is their social status, or how high they go in social status, that they are violent peoples. I want to remove this particular doubt from me analyzing a few things, and I want to take notes on some of the things I analyze pertaining to black Americans and violence. And the incident of Will Smith does not prove that black people are violent. The first thing I want to move, the doubts, is that I want to mention today that Joe Biden today signed an anti-lynching bill. And this is where I'm going to prove that black people are not violent. Joe Biden today, he signed an anti-lynching bill related to Emmett Till. Emmett Till. An anti-lynching bill. This is going to be the key to everything what I'm going to say about black peoples and violence. Black peoples are the victims of violence. I say it again. Black peoples are the victims of violence. And they're not the victims of violence by the hand of other black people. Rather yet, they are the victim of violence by the hands of whites and the U.S. government historically. Historically. Say it again. Historically and systemically. The Joe Biden signing the anti-lynching bill proves that black people are not violent peoples. They are the victim of violence. And when you study psychology, that peoples who have been traumatized and they are the victim of violence, that sometimes they mimic what is happening to them. And they mimic it and they act it out on other black people because they are not able to fight white peoples. Joe Biden today signed what? The anti-lynching bill. Was black people lynching black people? No, it was white people lynching other black peoples. So let's now look at Will Smith and Chris Rock. Even though it is a violent incident, did not Will Smith apologize? Yes. Did Chris Rock respond to him with violence? No. Black people are not violent peoples. For those who saying that the incident with Will Smith proved that black peoples are violent, That does not show that in that incident. Now, the anti-lynching bill that Joe Biden signed today related to Emmett Till. Why was Emmett Till killed? Why were black people lynched? Why were black towns burned down, destroyed, and black people lost their lives in these massacres? When we look deep into the incidents and history, that we will find that the perpetrator of violence are white peoples in America, not black peoples. Emmett Till was killed because it was allegedly said the little boy who had a stuttering problem, that he whistled at a white woman, a boy who had a what? Speech impediment. And because he had a speech impediment, one of the remedies or the ways he used to cope with it was by whistling, so it will help him to speak and not stutter his words. And he was taken out of his home, a boy, not a man, by another groups of white men. And they beat him and they killed him and they cut his penis off and put it in his mouth and threw him in a body of water. Who are violent peoples now? With the other race riots in American history that have been portrayed against black peoples, one of the cases is a black elevator doorman was allegedly talked to a white girl. Allegedly. They killed him and they burned down the town. And they burned down the black businesses. They burned up and killed black peoples. And the U.S. government in that area, the government in the area assisted in killing these black people by a lie of a white woman fake tears. Who are the violent peoples? Will Smith smacked Chris Rock. He apologized, and Chris Rock did not meet him with violence. Who are the violent peoples here, historically? Who lynched black peoples? Let's get a little bit deeper in history. Hitler masqueraded, slaughtered the Jews based on what they teach in history, white people's history, that our Jew rejected him in a art school. That's what they teach in U.S. history about Hitler in World War II. That Hitler, when he was a boy, that he was rejected from a art school by a Jewish person or a Jewish school. And this caused his hatred for the Jewish peoples. And that was one of the reasons why Hitler murdered and slaughtered Jews and other non-Germans, other ethnic groups, gypsies, other ethnic groups. Hitler slaughtered them. Who's violent here? Is it black people violent? Or is white people historically known from being violent? So when they try to say that black people, Will Smith can't act civil, and his actions and the Oscar proves that he's of black people are violent, well, Will Smith didn't kill Chris Rock. He cried and he apologized later on. And Chris Rock didn't respond with him with violence. Who's the violent person here? When Emmett Till was killed, the boy, a child, by a group of white peoples, what happened to the murderers of Emmett Till? Because now in Hollywood, the Oscars, they say they want to ban Will Smith. So let's turn around and look now. What happened to the perpetrators who killed this boy, Emmett Till, from allegedly whistling, which is not a crime? He had a stuttering problem. So basically, they killed a black boy who had a learning disability or speech impediment. They killed him allegedly for a white woman, fake lies, delusional ways, and fake tears. What did the legal system do here, since they want to talk about Will Smith and banning him from the Oscars or whatever? Let's see what the legal system, the U.S. government, did historically to the men who killed Emmett Till. What did they do? They set them free. They found them not guilty in court. Then after that, finding them not guilty, they boast about to the public how they killed him. And the U.S. government didn't do anything about it. To this day, the white woman who lied on him today, she is still alive. And they talking about black peoples are violent? Who are the violent ones here? Who are the savages here? The white men who killed Emmett Till, then the U.S. government who found them not guilty? Who are the savages and the violent ones here? Rosewood. Massacred black peoples. Killed them, slaughtered them. Just because of a fake tears of a white woman who's known today, or we know this type of fake tears as the Karens and the Beckys. And then the white men who slaughter for them. So Will Smith is violent because he smacked Chris Rock because he made a joke about his wife. But the white man slaughtered and killed and lynched black men and women and children based on the fake tears and lies of a white woman. Who are the violent peoples here? Who are the violent peoples here? Black peoples, we are the victims of violence. And if anything you see from us, from black on black crime, we are just doing what you taught us to do. We are behaving the way we see you behave with us. Who are the violent ones here? Where did we, black peoples, even in crime and acting in a certain way, where did they pick up these traits? They learned it from other white peoples. You go into the hood that the U.S. government made, and the conditions that they made, taking away economics from black peoples, put them in concentration camps in these hoods and projects, and turned around. Who are the black peoples in the hood imitating? Gangsters, right? Gangsters. What gangsters? Capone. White gangsters. White mobsters. The first gangsters and mobsters in America were white peoples, not black peoples. Black people are not the first gangsters in America. Capone. These are the gangsters in American history. The Italian mafia. Black people didn't make these things up. They learned these things from white peoples. Who are the original gangsters and murderers? So when y'all turn around and say that black people real violent, we learned it from you guys. We learned it from the white peoples in America. Because you've been perpetrating violence on us for hundreds of years in this country. Saying that Will Smith is violent and black people have an issue with violence, you are a sellout. I don't agree with him smacking another person. I don't agree with Will Smith smacking Chris Rock. I don't agree with those behaviors and those actions. But don't forget who are the ones been perpetrating violence on black peoples. And when you see black peoples in these gangs running in the streets acting stupid, we learned them from white peoples. They are the original gangsters. The Italian mafia, the Godfather, John Gotti, Capone. Matter of fact, the U.S. government made certain law enforcement just for them, for their violence. There's a movie today that even that shows you, demonstrates the type of gangs that came from white people. The Gangs of New York, the movie. The Gangs of New York. All white gangs. The original gangsters. Not black peoples. NYPD. The original gangsters. The first organized police precinct or department in U.S. history in 1845. The original gangsters. They took all the gangsters and the Irish people, the gangsters doing the crimes, and they gave them jobs as police. They gave them the fire department. They gave the Jews the administration office positions. And you want to talk about black peoples or violence, and Will Smith and this incident show how the violence of black peoples. Oh, you guys are kidding. You got a wicked history. Right here in America alone. A wicked history. Right here on American soil. Wherever you go on the earth, wicked history of murdering and slaughtering peoples. You want to talk about black peoples are violent. You don't see what's going on in Ukraine? Ain't no African nation bombing Ukraine or invading Ukraine. Ain't no African nation invading Ukraine. Who are the violent peoples? So all the black folks out there talking about this stuff, Will Smith, it's not important. Oh, black peoples are, this shows the issue of black problems with mental health or violence because white peoples made us this way. The government was designed to make us behave this way. And we learned it from watching them. You ever see how black people beat their children? Where do you think this stuff come from? You ever see when they show you in the culture that mirrors or the culture that shows about black people's experience? And sometimes you might joke about these things when they show you our mama used to beat our behind and things like this, and beating are very harsh. Where we get this from? We got it from the slave master, because this is how the slave master treated his slaves. And we turn around and treat each other the same way because we learned it, the violence from white peoples. Beat the slave to keep him doing more work and not running away. Black people picked up the same trait from the slave master, beat the child as a form of discipline. So if he misbehaved, beat him until he complies. That came from slavery. We got it from white people because they did it to us. Any violence that you see black people doing, we learned it from white peoples in this country. Then you want to talk about, people want to talk about black peoples are violent? You don't see the Trumpsters storm Capitol Hill. Did black peoples storm Capitol Hill that day? Did black peoples as a race and a group of peoples in America storm Capitol Hill? It was white people who stormed Capitol Hill. It was white people who killed police officers. It was white people who put a threat to those representatives of the U.S. government and put their lives in jeopardy. It wasn't black peoples. It was white peoples, the Trumpsters. And their leader wasn't no black person. It was a white man. Who are the violent ones here? Who are you talking about? Black peoples are violent. If black people was really violent, this whole country would be burning down right now. Slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, police brutality, AIDS, drugs. We would have burned this country down long time ago because we're not violent is the reason why we didn't burn this country down long time ago. If it was the other way around, black people oppressing white people like this, white people would have burnt this country down long time ago. And you did burn down this country before, white peoples. Civil War. What do you think the Civil War was about? That wasn't no black on black crime, the Civil War. It was white on white. So for all these black people who saying Will Smith, black people got a lot of violence in our community, this is a lot of violence, because we got it from the white peoples. They perpetrated this violence on us. Despite what other nonsense and sinful things that Will Smith and his wife is going through. Black people are not violent. Look at Iraq. Look at Bush, George Bush Jr., who his father invaded Iraq in Desert Storm. They left. 9/11 happened. Has nothing to do with Iraq. They invade Afghanistan. George Bush Jr. as the president. Then they go into Iraq and they slaughter thousands of people, Iraqi peoples. And my mother reminded me today. She said, you know that George Bush Jr. was seeking revenge because Saddam Hussein called his father a kalb, a dog, during the Desert Storm. Or after that, he called him a dog and was laughing at George Bush. He went to seek revenge. How many American soldiers died when they went to Iraq? How many Iraqi women and children died? How many people in Iraq suffered from chemical warfare based on the lies of George Bush Jr.? And nobody today held George Bush Jr. accountable for lying about the Gulf War because there wasn't no chemical weapons there. And you're talking about Will Smith, and they need to get him rid of going to the Oscars. What about holding George Bush Jr. accountable for lying and all the American white soldiers who died? What you guys playing with? Talk about black peoples are violent. Who are we kidding? Who this game is for? What this woke crap that people's talking about? Let me find out. We got black folks here who's KKK. The self-hate is that bad in the black community? Forget about if Will Smith right or wrong. I said he's wrong. He's definitely wrong. He did something violent, did something wrong, but the person didn't react in violence. He could have. Chris Rock could have smacked him back. He acted civil about it. And then if you look deep into the situation, right? Even those people say, why are you talking about this? You look deep into the situation. What did the black peoples do there with Will Smith? What they do? Hey, what did P. Diddy say? He said, man, we talk about this in the back room. Somebody black is telling them we're going to fix our issues as a group of peoples. That's what you do when two people comes and fight or have a problem. Somebody comes and be civil and say, hey, we got to sit down and fix this. That's a civil thing to do. So we talking about what happened there is sign that black peoples are violent. Who are you talking about? White men slaughter peoples. Talking about black peoples are violent. We didn't even see what happened to George Floyd the other day. What? George Floyd death was just the other day. You talk about we're violent peoples? White cop killed George Floyd, put his knee on his neck for what? 9 minutes, killed this man. And you was talking about black peoples, we violent? You're happy we didn't burn down this country long time ago. If black peoples are violent, we'd have burned this whole country down to the best of our ability. And if it was a white person, or this happened to white people in America, you would have burnt this country down long time ago. Just like how when Europeans are killing and fighting other Europeans. Right there in Europe today. Don't talk about black peoples are violent. Look at your own history. Look at your own peoples. Stop pretending to be pious and the righteous peoples. The peacemakers. You're not no peacemakers. Even today, talking about black people's violent. I hear people in the media talking about this. Proof that black peoples are violent, don't know how to act civil. It's not the news media right now about Ukraine. It's hiding the facts. The U.S. media right now is hiding the facts that Ukrainians are Nazis. And the U.S. government is supporting Nazis, Ukrainians. And they hate black peoples. And the proof of it is how they didn't let the Africans leave the country. And they have neo-Nazis there, and the U.S. government support the neo-Nazis. Joe Biden. And you want to talk about black peoples are violent? Even the media, the white media, don't tell you the truth. When I hide the facts that Ukrainian got Nazis there. They want to hide the fact that they want to dismiss that the Ukrainians are not letting the black peoples leave. And you still have black people here talking about Will Smith, the black community, that incident, we're violent. You guys crazy? You guys crazy? Are you crazy? Are we crazy? I really want to know. Are we crazy ass peoples? I can understand the news media. It's propaganda. I can understand it. I can understand why they lie. Why they do what they do. It's called propaganda. But I want to understand how black people's going to start believing this propaganda they see about black peoples. We'll never rise with this type of attitude. That's right, Hanif Davis. That's right. You said it's funny that the American media has covered the Nazi problem in Ukraine years ago. Times magazine has. Yes. Time magazine. Matter of fact, I had uploaded one of their videos the other day of the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And the neo-Nazis have helped remove their government in 2014, 2015.
They was part of the revolution. And the U.S. government is helping them. U.S. government is supporting Nazis, neo-Nazis, just for NATO to have a base there so U.S. government can have their military there. But won't tell the American peoples that they're supporting Nazis. The media won't tell you that now. The U.S. government supporting Nazis. Ain't nothing new though. Oh man, nothing new. U.S. government and politicians supporting Nazis. That's nothing new historically. Back to the Bush family. What's that? Prescott Bush? Huh? Huh? George Bush, his great-grandfather. What's that? Prescott Bush, who supported Hitler and the Nazis. That's how he made his money. And he was a politician. Maybe go back to Bush. Maybe going back to the Bush family now. Huh? What's that? Prescott Bush, I believe his name is. He even supported the Nazis. Hitler. And he was a representative also. He was also part of the U.S. government or worked in it. Come on. Come on. Let's even talk about history. U.S. government made money off of World War I and World War II. Global history, American history. U.S. government made money in World War I and World War II by selling weapons to both sides. That's American history. That's global history. Why did Japan bomb Pearl Harbor? Huh? History tell us, some historians saying U.S. government allowed them because they wanted to enter into the war, but they needed a legitimate excuse. But history, American history say U.S. government was selling weapons on both sides. And Japan didn't like that. U.S. government was selling what? Weapons to both sides, meaning to the Nazis. That's American history. That's global history. And Japan didn't like it, and that's why they bombed Pearl Harbor, bro. U.S. government allowed them to bomb Pearl Harbor because they wanted to enter the war, because it would mean they would get a bigger grip or a bigger hold or a bigger pot. They get to show this new government in U.S. how powerful they are. That's why they entered the war or allowed Japanese to bomb Pearl Harbor. Then they turn around and drop the atomic bomb on the Japanese. And they talk about black people's we're violent. You drop the only country ever drop an atomic bomb on a group of people is the U.S. government. And you say black people's we are violent? You criminals. That's all you mean. You are oppressors. Tagut. You talk about black peoples? I don't know how any black person can repeat this stuff about Will Smith, and this is a sign of black people's we are violent. Are you kidding me? You didn't see what happened in Sandy Hook here in New Jersey? In Sandy Hook, that white kid went to the school and shot up and killed all those children in school. And the mother was buying this guy all type of automatic weapons. You talk about black people's real violent? The black people who are lynched and killed by whites because a white woman lied. And her fake cries and her fake tears of the Karens. And the white men who killed for her. People talking about why did Will Smith do that for his wife? Smack Chris Rock for his wife? Man, white people been slaughtering black Americans, lynching them and murdering them for the lies and fake tears of white women. Massacred, killed towns of black peoples. And one of these incidents, remember, they dropped an airplane with bombs on top of the black people's houses? And one of these massacres, They had the government had planes and they dropped bombs and killed the people. Matter of fact, right there in Philadelphia, what's that, in the 70s or in the 80s, that the police department in Philadelphia dropped a bomb in the hood on a group of black peoples who had no weapons? Took a helicopter and dropped a bomb on top of them? This is what white America do to its black citizens. And you talking about black people's real violent? You talking about Will Smith is violent? The police in Philadelphia dropped a bomb on black people's in a house with women and children inside. You talking about black people's real violent? We might have amnesia. Some of y'all black brothers and sisters, some of y'all might have amnesia talking about black people's are violent, this Will Smith thing. Some of y'all have amnesia or something. Dementia or something. Y'all have a very short memory. Don't remember this stuff.
Between the 1870s and the beginning of World War I, black pioneers settled more than 100 all-black towns in the West, each with the goal of economic independence. Among the most well-known was a black district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known by its residents as Greenwood.
If we were to go back in time to 1920 and walk up and down Greenwood Avenue, one thing that would probably strike us is the absolute variety of businesses. The numbers are astonishing. 30 restaurants, 45 groceries and meat markets. There were dry goods stores, milliners, photography studio, dental offices. Greenwood is no longer called Greenwood. It's now known as Black Wall Street.
This whole idea of self-containment really existed there. The dollar would stay in that community sometimes over 3-5 years before it ever went outside of the community.
In 1919, black soldiers returned from World War I with high expectations for racial progress at home. But in one city after another, white mobs erupted in violence, targeting black veterans, citizens, and businesses. Hundreds died. On Tulsa's Black Wall Street, African Americans, including armed veterans, watched nervously and prepared for what might come.
Countering this white militancy is very much an African American spirit of we're going to defend ourselves. If the mob comes, we're not going to run. We've got our guns and we're going to protect ourselves. And that was especially important and valuable and potent in Greenwood.
On May 30th, 1921, the mob came to Greenwood.
This white woman is in an elevator and this black teenager allegedly whistles at her or talks to her. He is taken to jail. A mob gathers of whites and blacks, and blacks in Tulsa are armed. They take their Second Amendment rights seriously, and they come with guns. And this is a threat. Someone fires into the crowd, and the riot is born. This was not about the whistling boy in the elevator. This was about blacks becoming too economically powerful and showing that wealth in a way that anyone would by creating buildings and constructing churches and having property.
There was a whistle that blew, and then the mass invasion and the destruction of Greenwood began.
When the smoke cleared in the early morning of June 1st, 1921, Black Wall Street lay in ruins.
This is by far the largest single incident of racial violence in all of American history.
Next tonight here, 66 years later, the FBI closing the case again in the murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till, taken from his family's home and killed over a claim that he insulted a white woman. What the FBI has told the family tonight, and the family now responding. Here's Lindsay Davis.
Tonight, 66 years after the brutal murder of Emmett Till, the Justice Department announcing they have closed their investigation. The family and friends of Till expressing their disappointment today.
We're disappointed that no one has paid for the tragic, brutal murder of a 14-year-old boy for whistling at a white woman.
The department had been looking into whether Carolyn Bryant Donham, the woman who claimed Till had grabbed and allegedly made lewd comments in a Mississippi grocery store, had recanted her previous accounts and if she or others could be prosecuted. The FBI reopened the case in 2017 after historian Tim Tyson claimed in his book that Donham, seen here in a 60 Minutes report from 2004, had taken back some of her allegations. Donham told the FBI she never recanted to Tyson, and today the DOJ concluded that they have not uncovered sufficient evidence to support federal prosecution.
I'm not surprised, but my heart is broken.
It has been a long road of heartbreak for the family of Emmett Till, who lost the 14-year-old in 1955 when Till was taken from the Mississippi home of his great-uncle by Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, the husband and brother-in-law of Caroline Bryant.
Girl said, we're looking for Fat Boy, the fat boy from Chicago.
Till's cousin, Reverend Wheeler Parker, was there that night.
And that's the last time we saw him.
Emmett Till's tortured body was pulled from the Tallahatchie River 3 days later. Till's grieving mother, Mamie Till Mobley, then made a decision that changed history, holding an open casket funeral for Emmett, her only child, which thousands attended and fueled the civil rights movement. Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam were tried and found not guilty by an all-white jury. A few months later, protected by double jeopardy, they confessed to the murder in a paid interview. Both men have since died.
She's the expert. Are you the expert? Bridget. Okay, start. Bye. We thought we were trapped. Oh, sorry about that.
This was certainly a boon to photographers and postcard dealers. Some of these images, like this one from Marion, Indiana, that man made 50,000 prints of that photo and sold them for 50 cents a piece before the governor of the state got him to stop printing.
It's stomach churning. And what's so frightening about what you're seeing here is that this stuff happened all the time, and these are postcards, and they were sent through the mail, and people advertised their photography companies, and it was entertainment. I mean, that's just gut-wrenching.
She's not the only female.
This is
Who is it?
And I don't know if it's because it was a woman or if it's because I'm not used to seeing those images. My heart started panting, and I was like, okay, this really did happen. And it's very different to read about a lynching and to actually see a body dangling in the air. And it was horrifying.
Okay.